Welcome, my friends. In this video, I'm going to be discussing section 2.6, which relates to lurking variables. Note that if you read the textbook related to this section, you'll see that there are a lot of details relating to two-way tables, conditional probabilities, as well as something called Simpson's paradox. I'm not going to be discussing those things in this video. I'm just going to be focusing on the idea of lurking variables and showing you a number of different examples. Okay, I think the best way to introduce the idea of lurking variables is just to look at an example. Let's say that we have observed that the more firefighters that we send to a fire, the more property damage there tends to be. Well, one conclusion you could draw from this observation is that firefighters are tending to make the fire worse and cause more property damage. But is this the case? No, of course not. There is a third, what we might call lurking variable, of how severe the fire is, that's causing both the property damage and for more firefighters to be sent to the fire. In general, we define a lurking variable as a variable that is related to both the explanatory and the response variables. In this case, our explanatory variable would be the number of firefighters sent to the fire, and our response variable would be the amount of property damage. How severe the fire is causes both of those things. When we have a more severe fire, we tend to send more firefighters. And when we have a more severe fire, we also tend to have higher property damage. So it's not the firefighters who are causing the damage, it's how severe the fire is. Now, of course, it seems obvious or trivial in this situation, but in many other situations, we may be very tempted to assume that the explanatory variable is causing the response variable without thinking about possible lurking variables. So one of the key lessons to take out of this section is that you should always be thinking about what other possible lurking variables could be really influencing both your explanatory and response variables. Here is an image to help you visualize how the explanatory, response, and lurking variables relate to each other. We may have the belief that the explanatory variable has some sort of relationship between our response variable, or in our case, that the number of firefighters that we send to the fire has some relationship to the amount of property damage. But in reality, there is a lurking variable, which in this case is how severe the fire is, which is influencing both of those things. So I think the reason why the lurking variable is in a thought bubble is because this is something that you have to think about. This is not a variable that you have collected, but this is a variable that is somehow impacting your analysis and something you should consider. Here are a few examples for you to think about to determine if there is a possible lurking variable. Pause the video and give each of these three a try. Note that there could be more than one possible correct answer. All right, let's take a look at each of these examples. Number 1 says more shark attacks occur on the days when more people get sunburned at a particular beach. So is there some kind of relationship between sunburns and shark attacks? Well, not directly. There's probably something else that's impacting both of these things. And probably that would be the number of people who are at the beach, which is also influenced by maybe temperature. So if you have a higher temperature, then that's going to influence more people to be at the beach, which is also going to influence more people to get sunburned and also possibly influence the number of shark attacks. So one possible lurking variable could be the temperature. And number 2, it says the higher the per capita chocolate consumption there is in a country, the higher the number of Nobel prizes awarded in the same country. So is it just the case that we should just, force feed as many people chocolate and we're just going to be winning more Nobel prizes? Well, probably not. There's probably some other variable that's going on here. And one hypothesis we could have is maybe it's the overall wealth of the country or possibly the quality of the education. If you have a very wealthy country, that could influence the amount of possible chocolate that is consumed in the country, but could also influence the number of people who could really be in the condition to possibly win the Nobel Prize. Same thing with education systems. If we have a very good education, that might create kind of the environment where there could also be more chocolate consumption, but possibly also create the conditions to have people more likely to win the Nobel Prize. So once again, there could be many other answers. Just because I didn't say your answer here doesn't mean that yours isn't right. There can oftentimes be many possible lurking variables. Okay, number 3 says individuals who own a home are more likely than those who do not to be satisfied with their lives. So is it really the case that homes are directly leading to satisfaction with lives? Well, maybe there is some truth to that, right? But it might not be the only thing that is influencing the satisfaction with people's lives, and there could be a possible lurking variable. And the one I came up with was financial stability. If you are financially stable, then that's going to put you in more of a position that you are likely to purchase or own a home. But also, if you are financially stable, then you're more likely to be satisfied with your life because you're going to not be worrying about the necessities, and maybe you're also more likely to have a sustaining career where you're not really worrying about money. Okay, so once again, there can be multiple possible answers for these, but the idea is always be thinking about other variables that could be lurking in the background, as it goes with the term lurking variable, right? Just because you have two variables that seem to be related in some way or seem to go in the same direction, seem to be correlated, doesn't mean that one is causing the other. There could be some other variable in the background that you haven't accounted for that's really influencing things. And that's really the major point of this presentation. All right, that's all I have to say in this video, so I will see you in the next one.